Hi, I'm Kelvin Guest Wines and welcome to 31 Days of German Riesling. Wow, here we go folks, 31 days all the way through July. Can you imagine it? It's going to be fabulous. All those wonderful Rieslings that we're going to have each day, every day through July. Wonderful, here we go. Cheers. Anyway, on a more serious note, welcome to 31 Days of German Riesling. I'm sure it is going to be fun. I probably wouldn't advocate drinking on every day in July, but nonetheless, it would be nice to fill some of those days in July with some nice Riesling wines from Germany, and I would say try them as well from other parts of the world too, because I think Riesling grape is a fantastic grape to get to know, and the more you get to know it, then the more I'm sure that you'll want to drink more of it. So this evening I've selected three wines from our online shop from German producers, all family run, from three different regions. I'll talk through those, I'll do a little bit of tasting on them, but I think it probably first, just to introduce a little bit about the 31 Days of German Riesling. This is an initiative set up by the Wines of Germany to get people more associated with Riesling and the Riesling grape and the wines and the wonderful wines that they actually make, and also to get you guys to maybe appreciate the wines that little bit more, because Riesling in itself is a fantastic grape variety. It's one of, I suppose, we call the noble grape varieties. It's a wide grape variety that has got a lot of life, a long life behind it. It can age for years and years and years, which is some of the top red wines. It evolves, it becomes more complex as it ages, and it's a wonderful wine to actually get to know. Mention Riesling to any wine geek, and they usually start drooling, and it's probably one of their favourite white wines that they'll mention in their sort of, you give them a top three, Riesling will probably come out at number one with most wine geeks. Now mention Riesling to anybody who isn't a wine geek, and they'll probably greet the kind of the statement of Riesling with a little bit of suspicion about it, and that's mainly because of maybe images that have been conjured up with regards to not necessarily the great variety, but from Germany, where one of the main regions, countries that it comes from, and this is perhaps not to do with Riesling itself, but more to do with another grape variety called Müller-Thurgau. Now, Müller-Thurgau was a grape variety that Germany sent over here in by the thousands of litres between maybe the 1960s right up to the 1990s or the turn of the century. And it was in such things as Blue Nun, Black Tower, the Freeburg Milk. Some of these things that we held at one point as a sort of state of sophistication at one point, but we also remember these wines as quite not very characteristic, off dry, not much going on, just in there, a bit of sugar, and pretty sort of nondescript in themselves. And that's kind of what people sometimes think of when you mention Riesling. That's what they're going to get, and it isn't. Just isn't. Let's just put it straight there, the record straight there, it isn't. Now, Riesling comes in a variety of wines. It can come from anything from, you can make sparkling wines, it can make still wines, and it can make wonderful dessert wines. It also has a variety of flavors, so it's really hard to pin down Riesling as a particular sort of characteristic about it in its flavour and aromas, because it can have a full range from citrus fruits to green fruits to more sort of the stone fruits, and then leading on to the tropical fruit side of the spectrum as well. I think the thing that really, though, for me, what defines Riesling is its acidity. That's part of its structure. This is something that is always a characteristic of Riesling, wherever it comes from in the world, or whatever sort of style it is. It has this wonderful, fresh, steely, precise, linear, crisp, fresh acidity that runs all the way through the wine, and it's just fabulous. That's what kind of makes it. It's just fresh, it's invigorated, it lifts, it carries, it accentuates all the other aromas and flavours in the actual wine itself. It is the control room, I suppose, of the wine. It's the main feature that I think makes it truly wonderful. And of course, the acidity enables really good Rieslings to age for a lifetime. So it's just truly wonderful. Now, Riesling as well is a great variety that likes cooler environments. In Germany is one of these places where it's really settled in. It's got hardy wood, so it can put up with it getting a bit nippy. It tends to bud a little bit late, so it avoids sort of the spring frosts, which is also good. And then for ripening, it tends to ripen towards sort of mid to late summer and into autumn. And that sort of enables it to develop some real phenolic ripeness in there, because you just don't want it to just be as quick ripening. It gets lots of sugar, but it's got no sorts of flavours and characteristics to it. So in Germany, because it has it's in northern hemisphere, it has the opportunity of having longer days of light in the summer and into the autumn, and this enables the Riesling to, over time, nice and steady, to ripen and get these wonderful flavours in there. Riesling is also a great variety that does show off characteristics of terroir, so where you plant it, it will develop characteristics of where it is in individual plots within the vineyard. So you can have Riesling in one plot, and then you can have it in another plot just literally feet away, and it will have some different characteristics about it. It's great at picking up those. So again, I would say that, I know this is on 31 days of German Riesling, but I would implore you to also try Rieslings from other parts of the world. Do go and have a look at our online shop. We've got various places: Australia, New Zealand, Austria, and France are some of the other regions that we have the wines in, and just to see the different characteristics that Riesling have, as well as that nice fresh acidity that just stays there no matter where it's planted in these cooler regions around the world. So just getting back to the wines that I've chosen. I've chosen three very nice wines. So we've got the first one here. This is the Riesling Kalkstein. This is by Ray Kenderman. These are one of the big producers in Germany. They produce a lot of branded wines, but very good and of a very good quality. Very, I would say, consistent in what they do. And then we've got the Louis Gundrum wine here, Riesling. And these are really fabulous wines that they make. These have been going for ages. You know, you're talking quite a few centuries. These guys have been knocking about. They know what they're doing, and this is a decent Riesling that we've got here. And then finally, I've got the Reichsgraf von Kesselstadt Riesling. This one is from another family that have been making Rieslings again for donkey's years. And again, what I'm trying to do here is show you the different styles of Riesling that you can get just in one country, but from three different regions. This one, the last one's going to be from the Mosel. Louis Gundrum is from, this one is from the Rheinhessen. And the first one that we're going to try, the Ray Kenderman, is from the Pfalz area of Germany. Now, Riesling is made in other areas of Germany as well, but I thought these were quite well-known areas, make very good Riesling wines, so we tried these. Now, I did think about whether I should put a sparkling or a dessert on. I chose not to, and maybe just because I thought, well, it would just be nice to try some of the drier and off-drier styles of Riesling on this occasion. But on another occasion, I might do a little bit more of the sparkling, which is referred to as sect, and some of their wonderful dessert wines that you can get that are made from either grapes that have got botrytis, noble rot, or some more rarer versions that are made from ice wine. But tonight I thought I would stick to the dry and off dry. So the first one, as you can see, it's screwed up. And this one here is, it's 2018, so it's fairly good. It's had a couple of years, hasn't it, really, sort of behind it. But it's made to be allowed to be dry, approachable, easy, fresh, good. So that's the main thing, good quality. So this has been, it's from the Pfalz area. And the Pfalz area in Germany is, as you just, in Germany, you're starting to go south. It's got a nice warm area, and it tends to produce Rieslings with a little bit more ripeness, a little bit more generosity to the body, a bit broader in the styles. So it's perfect if you want something that's just easygoing, nice and approachable. So looking at this, you see it's got a nice brightness to it. And then when I just give it a sniff on the nose, I'm getting here like very citrus, like a citrus burst. It's almost like sniffing when you open a packet of opal fruits or something like that, you get the lemon and the limes. Or you just undo the packet and out it bursts, this citrus little sort of bomb, this burst of fragrance straight up your nose. And then maybe some crisp, crunchy apple going on behind there as well. Very nice. And then you get this, there's that typical sort of, it's like a, what can I say, typical Riesling sort of nose. It's got this, it smells a bit, what was a very way to say, maybe like a, I think Oz Clarke has a good way of referring to the smell you can get sometimes off of Riesling, like a rubbery, like a plimsoll kind of smell, but not in a bad way, not in like it's overdone or overstated. It's just like this nice, and you've got like a fresh shoe, like if you just got your sort of sand shoes out, something out of the box, and you get this like little waft of that kind of like fresh new rubber, you get that kind of whiff to it. It's lovely. There's an aromatic. There's already I'm getting a little bit of spiciness going on there. There's floral going on in the back, some a little bit of yellow flower maybe. But there's freshness. I can always smell freshness. I think maybe that's because of all that citrus thing that's going on, and then just having a taste of it. It's fresh, but there's some weight there on the body. I'm getting the lovely citrus fruit. I'm getting that texture that's in there, and the acidity is really sort of turning the volume up on the citrus. So I'm getting that sort of that lemon and lime fruits coming really through. But then part of the other side of it is, I think with the weight in the body, it has that kind of almost a little bit of baked apple nuance to it as well. But then that's then cleaned away by this lovely freshness that comes back in towards the finish. I mean, this lovely. This will go lovely by itself, fresh. Get some sunshine. This is beautiful. It'd also go with things like something a bit spicy, a bit of Thai food, maybe some sea bass with steamed coconuts would be really nice, and some blue cheese and pear and walnut is another thing. Or even if you want to go a bit more traditional with your food and have something a bit more English over here, maybe something like a black pudding apple sauce would work a treat with this as well, because you look at that sort of dryness of the black pudding, and then you've got this fresh, zippy acidity that will go through it, lift it up, and it'll just make it an absolutely joyful mouthful to have. So this is wonderful. So cheers. That's very, very nice. Now, before I move on to the next one, I'll tell you as well, because it's 31 days of German Riesling, we also have some goodies for you. So if you buy some German Riesling, we have things like I have here, these very, very stylish, cool looking sunglasses. Even make me look a little bit cool when I've got them on. also advertising 31 days of German Riesling there. We've also got other goodies, bottle openers, maps. If you want to be a hipster, we've got some tattoos you can stick on. Look a bit hip out there, get your tight pants on some of these, fantastic. Or if you're more something a little bit more traditional, we've got some lovely carrier bags to put your nice bottles of Riesling to take home with you. And when you go out shopping, you can tell everybody what lovely wine Riesling is. Okay. So do look out for them. So when you order, you might get any one of those in there. So do look out and do order, and you'll get some nice colours. And then we can all walk around the Newcastle and Northeast looking pretty cool indeed in these glasses, don't you think? So, I mean, cool. So, moving on quickly, I think it would be nice to try our second Riesling of this evening, which is the Louis Gumtrum. And this one I've chosen the 2014. Now we've got the current vintage we have is 2018, but we still have some bottles of 2014. And recently we opened some of this, and it was great to try it because I tried it against the 2014 just to see the evolution of what this wine has gone through. And like I said earlier, that Riesling is a wine that can last for decades. And when it ages, it evolves and can develop a wonderful array of new nuances that weren't there in its younger form. So here we have got a 2014. I thought I'll give this a whirl. I'm going to try and see what I think about it, and then maybe something for yourself that you might feel something for you. Now again, the colour, you see, it's got a bit more depth to this. More sort of yellow, even sort of the green in there, but there's definitely some more depth to that than the previous one. Now, smelling this, it does smell deeper, if that's a descriptor. Now, what I mean by that, straight away, what I can smell is riper fruits. It smells much riper than the last one in that there's a richness to it. Whereas the Ray Kenderman was this bright, breezy, fresh citrus element to it. This Louis Gumtrum has got more of, it feels riper, it feels bigger. There's more of an underlying stone fruits going in there, maybe a bit of peach, even apricot, and then something citrus in the way of orange more than lemon or lime. But it's also developing what the characteristic nose of Riesling can develop with a bit of age, and there's this sort of smoky flintiness, sometimes referred to as smelling a bit like petrol or kerosene. And this is from a molecule that's often referred to as TDA, trimethyl dihydronaphthalene. So it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But what it kind of refers to is basically that smell. You give it a sniff, and there's this sort of kerosene, flinty, petrol kind of waft about it. But again, it's not where you smell it and it's off-putting. It's kind of pleasant. It kind of lifts the wine. It gives this sort of, it's almost like it's like a hum, vibration as such to the wine. It lifts it up, and it's also pleasant because it's offset with this wonderful ripe stone fruits of the apricot and peaches. Now, it's like a contrast, but the contrast, rather than being separate and the kind of fighting one another, it's almost like it complements because it shows off. It's kind of pointing you as well to these wonderful ripe fruits, as well as having this interesting aroma about it that you don't often find in wines, except Riesling you often do. And I think that kind of draws your attention, it gets your attention, and once you've got your attention, and you suddenly get all these other things that are going on, like say, like the stone fruits, and you get the sort of citrus, the more depth of orange, etc. in there. So that's a good start to it. So it smells like it's got a little bit of age, but I'm really getting those sort of ripeness to it as well. So on the nose, that's great. So on the palate, so straight away, there's that lovely acidity. It's not disappeared. Ship straight through, precise, knows where it's going, cutting all the way through that. That's wonderful. But the body has got heavier. It's got bigger. It complements the ripeness that I'm getting on the nose. That ripe fruits, that more ripe stone fruits. The richness is balanced by this weight. So it's kind of showing it off. It's accentuating it. That what I'm smelling as a rich fruit is actually proven on the palate by the weight of it. It's broader. It's got that heaviness to it. But it's not just sagging and resting there and lying around, lolling everywhere. It's got this lovely acidity that just keeps it fresh and lifts it and carries it somewhere, and it's just fantastic. Now the Guntram family, that's really good. All working together. None of this is separate. They're not. It's a team. It's teamwork that's going on in this glass, and I suppose it's much like the Guntram family. They've been going absolutely forever, I think, from something like the 1600s. So they know a thing or two about Riesling. And I would say, if you do want to try a slightly older Riesling, because 2014 for a Riesling is, a decent Riesling. It's not that old. I mean, this is what now, 7 years old. And you can also try it with its 2018. Do so, you'll see the differences. I've done it myself, and it's just great to see how Riesling starts to evolve over time. And that just shows you interest that it doesn't necessarily just disappear like a lot of white wines, where, say, after a couple of years, they're at the peak, and that's it. You've got to, get them drunk, and that's fine. That's what they're there to do. But with Riesling, some of them that are of a higher quality can go on for quite some time. Now, this one, I don't think it's particularly made to go on ever and ever like some can. It's kind of reaching, I think, a crescendo where it probably needs to be drunk in the next year or so. But it's good. It's really good quality. It's really well balanced. Like I say, this is teamwork going on in the glass. It's not all disjointed. It's not all over the place. This is working. It's working right, and everything seems to be doing what it's supposed to do in its department. And it's giving me immense pleasure by drinking it. So I'm just going to have a little swallow. That is fantastic. Really, really like it. Fresh, bit of spice on the back as well coming in there. But there's that nice weight, this textural side coming in. Love it. I love that. So, two great Rieslings there from two great family-run businesses. The final one is another family-run, really good. This is from the Mosel region. I think I told you this one from, I'm sorry, I think I might have told you this from Rheinhessen. Sorry, let's go back to Lewis Guntram a minute. Rheinhessen was once just seen as a bit of a, I suppose, the powerhouse of some of the German wines. That it's warm, like the Pfalz. It's not too far away from the Pfalz region, but it's a bit flatter. And it tended to make a lot of general wines out there, to get out there, sort of for larger volume production, but it's not so nowadays. And even when it was a key feature, you still had families such as the Guntrams in there making their fabulous wines as well, and showing you what you can do on lower spectrum. Now, why I'm talking about lower here, because in Germany, because I mentioned earlier about the Riesling grape, it likes cooler environments. Germany is a cooler environment. It can often be pretty cold, and so if you were growing grapes, say, just on the flatter land, it would be near impossible to ripen much of them for most years. So one of the features of Germany is slopes, and it's not slopes where in say hot countries like in Argentina and Chile, where you have the vines on the slopes to cool the vineyards down to retain acidity, phenolic ripeness, etc. It's kind of the opposite. You've got the slopes there to actually get more exposure to the sun and heat. And another feature of Germany is a lot of its soils that are good for the vineyards are sort of slate soils. And these slate soils not only are good for drainage, but they also retain heat, so you get the sunshine in the day, and then in the night when it's more chilly, the heat can radiate from the stones and continue to ripen the grapes. But the main thing that ripens the grapes is the amount of daylight that I mentioned earlier. So we've had the Pfalz, we've had the Rheinhessen, and now we're going over to another classic region. Sorry, one more, right? Picking up the one grape, let's say, well, we had two glasses, one picking one. We're going over to a classic region, which is the Moselle. And this is more further north, it's more further to the west. It's known for its very, very steep vineyards. And these vineyards have to be tended to by hand. There is some where they can have one or two sort of smaller machines to help, but they have to be pulled up on pulleys, on little rails to get up there. Incredibly steep places to go. And this is because then you can maximise the sun exposure to the grapes for ripening. Moselle, I would say Moselle Riesling tends to, if you wanted to throw in a bit of a stereotype, has that lightness, that delicacy about it and finesse, but also it's got that lovely acidity still running through it. Now this one here is the Reichsgraf von Kesselstadt, and it's from a vineyard that I mean, I was looking it up to see what it actually meant in the actual vineyard, because what they do with a lot of wines is you'll get the wine region, which is the Moselle, you'll get the producer, but then you also get the village and the vineyard. And this is to show off that it's got sort of real provenance, it comes from somewhere particular. And in this case, it's from the Kessler, and it's the Nischen vineyard. Now, when I look this up, the Kessler is the village, but the village is, when I looked at the translation of it, it's something about the clergy's robe. And the Nischen is what translates as sneeze. But when I read up the notes from the actual producer, they said the Nischen was named after a nun because the land where the vineyard was run by a monastery. It referred to a nun, and the nun didn't have the name of Sneeze, I can tell you that. She was, what was she called now? She was called Angela. That's right, so she was Angela. So I don't know where the sneeze comes from. I have no idea. Maybe it was just she was a nun that sneezed a lot called Angela. I do not know. The mind boggles. Anyway, but what it does tell me is that it's from a particular vineyard, from a particular plot. So, like I said earlier, that Riesling is very good at showing off its terroir. And also you can see on the top of the neck here is this particular symbol. And this tells me it's made by a group called the VDN. And the VDN, what they're trying and strive to is all about quality. Now, German wine, again, what I mentioned earlier, is a lot of people might shudder at German wine because they think of the Fieber Milk, Black Tower, and Blue Nun, and the likes of. Is that German wine has had some turbulent times, and one of the things that tried to stabilise these turbulent times was in 1971 a new law came out that defined what German wine was about. And what it did, it defined it on the levels of sweetness. And this was not necessarily the level of sweetness of the wine, but the levels of, maybe correctly I should say, the sugar levels, the ripeness of grapes in a vineyard. And it went upon what the grapes' ripeness were in a vineyard, and defined where they fitted in various categories. And this seemed to work kind of okay, sort of, but what it did, it eliminated site sort of specific wines and what they could actually do and achieve in quality. It seemed to put an emphasis on quality. The sweeter the wine was, the higher quality it was. The drier it was, less quality, which isn't true at all. And it really then kind of threw, I think, German wines into a bit of a turmoil of where anybody who wanted to drink the wines who was unfamiliar with them, into a bit of a turmoil of what they were actually going to get as a wine. So the VDN came along and wanted to pursue a more, I suppose, what we see maybe a more French way of looking at things, but also maybe a more rational way of looking at it. And that was to look at individual sites, and this is vineyards and plots within vineyards, and start to look at where the best wines came from these sites. And so it's very much more like on what we say the Burgundian model of things, where you've got wines that are characterized by region, village, and you've got Premier Cru, and at the top the Grand Cru, the very best wines from the very best vineyards. And that seems to be a more sensible approach. And I think it's something that overall the Germans are now looking at, to maybe start to readdress their wine law that we had and review it from 1971, because it's well out of date. And also there's another factor of climate change that has come about, where grapes tend to ripen far easier than they used to in 1971. So the VDN's approach seems to be a far better way of dealing with things. And what their approach is about is making top quality wines. And we've got one here. And we've only got very, very, very limited stock of this. It's something, and now even more limited, because I have nicked this bottle out of the stash to open for this tasting here. Now this is, say, from the Mosa. It's a cooler part, very high steep vineyards, worked by hand, slate soil, so you get that sort of reflectivity in the evening. This one is from 2006. So again, where we had the Louis Gumtron from 2014, you can see some age on it. This has aged even longer, so we're talking on to 15 years. Whereas the other two as well were screw top. We're now moving into the realms of cork. So one is corked, and I thought I'd try out one of these goodies from the Wines of Germany and their 31 days of Riesling stoppers, output loaders. So I'm just going to see here a test run straight away on this bottle here this evening, and see if we can get it open and have a glass of the wine in it. Now I have had this wine before, so I have got high expectations of it. It is very good. Like I say, it is limited quantity, so if you are interested, I would say get it while you can, because it's not going to be in stock for much longer. I can vouch for it being very good, and I'm hoping this one is. I'm quite excited by having it, but I'm hoping that I'm not going to be let down by the wine. So let me see if we can get it open with this here. Right, now what I'm finding with this now is it's, because of its age, the cork has deteriorated a little bit. So it's about trying to delicately get it out. Hopefully I can. Might not be successful. Nothing to do with the corkscrew is just to do the cork at the age, and the longer age the cork starts to get a little bit dry, get a bit crumbly. So you just have to be excuse me, a little bit gentle with it. So we're just going to try now, just do it nice and slowly. Now there is two parts that we can use on this corkscrew, which is very good. I just need to see if we can ease it out. Not causing too much further damage to the cork or the wine. Now I might have to stand up a little just to pull it gently. So not too much force on the cork. I got it, as you can see, just starting to get a little bit worn of age, a little bit on myself. Really. So there we go, we got it out. Just give just a little white, and we shall go on there. Okay, so 2006. So if you do purchase any, just remember to be very, very gentle with the cork. Now, the first one I had was a while ago. It was fine. The cork came out fine. But obviously, this evening, as I'm here videoing, of course, it wouldn't do that. No way. But look at the colour of that. Isn't that fantastic? It starts to get that gold, amber presence about it. I'm just giving it a swirl. Look, it looks weighty. It looks like it's got some body there. That doesn't look like an easygoing light wine. So then give it a sniff. Oh, yes, there's definitely more going on here. I'm getting more on the tropical fruit side. There's definitely a richness in there, more fullness, and maybe something that's starts to verge on is the tropical fruits, but real sort of candy peel. Maybe more that sort of dry candied fruit as well. It's got something that is reminiscent of something that's quite sugary, but with still that nice flavoursome side to it as well. Rich, inviting, and there's this wonderful perfume just starting to come off it, like a mist that's gathering, gaining, and becoming more prominent. And tasting it, the acidity, it's there, but it's beginning to mellow. It's beginning to have that a new dimension, have a wider, broader sense to it. The body has become curvy, it's become textured and silky. And I'm going more erring towards that tropical side, but also apricot. There's a lot of apricot that's, I would say, juicy apricot, really ripe apricot as well. So the herbal note to it coming out as well. Oh, it's just wonderful just to give it a sniff. This will go well with a variety of foods, and I think particularly if you like pork, this is going to be a winner with pork. Again, the acidity is still there enough to deal with any fattiness in pork, but it will certainly make the meat come out and shine. But then you could try something, I think it's a little bit spicy, sort of spicy noodles will work really, really well with this. And maybe, you know, some sushi, some really sort of sushi with more sort of richer items in there would balance off well with this. And maybe even some of the lighter things that are a little bit more simple in themselves, will complement the richness of this wine. And I just think it's wonderful. It's just wonderful for what Riesling can do. You know, we've got the first one, the Reikendem and the Koltstein. It's all about that freshness, that zippiness, that sort of fresh citrus fruits. The acidity sort of tingles and runs all the way down the center of the tongue. It's all just there. Make sure it's all present. Whereas now in this, it's rounder, it's heavier, it's textured, the acidity, the freshness. You still get it because it's giving that sort of exuding on that freshness of fruit. It's become mellow, it's become softer, it's become approachable in the sense that it's stopped having to sort of prove itself and what it can do, and it's just wonderful. It's wonderful just to sit back and enjoy it. We'll start again a whiff there of honey came by just as you open a jar of honey, and you just get an initial whiff of it. It just went by on that sort of that sip that I took just there. And I think there's also a little bit of like pineapple chunks as well, starting to show through. It's wonderful. It's really, really nice. I could just sit here and drink it. I can imagine you not just wanting to drink these wines. So there we have it. I just think we've got 3 wonderful German Rieslings from 3 German wine regions, from 3 different German producers, with different age on them. And it just shows a little bit of the versatility of Riesling. Again, there's a full spectrum of it, and you know, maybe next time we'll do something on sect and also on their dessert wines that you can also get from Germany. But also, I know it's 31 days of German Riesling, but do try Rieslings from elsewhere as well. And just to point out something that we got, this one is, I just think it's a fabulous one. If you like that sort of that TVM note on wines, but you like fresh, really acidity, and you like that citrus element to it, and maybe a bit of white flower thrown in there, then you're not going to go far wrong with the Riesling fruit that we have here. And this is from the Eveyone Valley in Australia, a well-known Riesling region. This is wonderful. And then over in New Zealand, we have Jane Hunter and her Rieslings from Marlborough. Again, fantastic. One of the keynotes of any of the Hunter's wines in general is their lovely, fresh, precise acidity that's very focused, and it brings that focus to their wines. And in the Riesling, they do it a treat. And this is really good to try. And this is, if you want to match it against some of the German ones, I say maybe try this from New Zealand, because it's fabulous. And then if you want something a bit more quirky, it's a bit more part of the blend. We've got the Deep Portelli Willow Glen, and this is Riesling blended with a great variety called Gewürztraminer. Gewürztraminer is a much more fragrant grape variety. It works well with Riesling because Gewürz can have all those. It can be like the volume turned up. It's got your tropical fruit, you've got the lychee, you've got the rose going on in there. But it can have a bit more broadness to the body, a bit more alcohol, but the acidity from the Riesling runs through there and it complements it no end. It's brilliant. And like I say, we've got Rieslings from the Alsace, we've got them from Austria as well, so do try them. But we've also got more from Germany as well, so please have a look on our website. Go and see if there's anything that you like. If you've got any questions, just give them a ring, get an email, and we'll be more than happy to oblige and answer your queries. Like I say, any of the German Rieslings that you buy, you may get some of these goodies in there as well. And you know, so you've got bags, the maps, and even tattoos for you to have. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of the 31 days of Riesling. There's much more to explore over the next month, and I hope you do so. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on it, so you can get in touch with us and leave your thoughts and your pictures of your celebrations on our Facebook or via our Twitter or Instagram. That would be great. It'd be great to hear from you. If you want to stay in touch with us at Guest Wines, then please do so and sign up to our newsletter. You can do this through our website on www.guestwines.com. It'd be great to stay in touch. It'd be great to do a bit more tastings with you and a bit more of these wonderful Riesling wines. So please get in touch, see what it's all about, and cheers, enjoy. Thank you.